All right, that was an easy choice. Just sort of followed my heart. It wasn't even the one that I told you I was thinking about. But on this story series, I am linking the story of the actual find. And it usually just pops into my mind. I never forget when it comes to my top shelf stuff. And there's something similar about this quartz. Tangerine and strawberry quartz. Just incredible stuff. And in the winter is the time that I look at it again. I don't get to, and I could. I could look at it all the time, but I don't on purpose. Uh, and for example, just so you know, came from here. One little bin with extra room because they're fairly deep. And you just remember the video with that one in. Now they're all sleeping again. But with that said, here on Indian Trace, what I like to do is take a little time to make the collecting of Indian artifacts a different story for you or for anybody else, or to give you different ideas about how you can do things instead of just finding rocks and throwing them in a shoebox somewhere. Your relatives will come after you, your children. They're going to want to know what's in your heart. Possibly, they're going to want to know the story behind a piece you found, or the story behind the land that you were once able to save these Indian artifacts on. Sorry. So I'm working on that focus. So we're going to take a look at these, and I know the stories because they all whisper the stories of when I found them immediately. That's how your mind works when I look at them. And interesting contrast, you can see why they all go together in that bin. See the similarity? That's just the way, in some aspects of my collecting, I do it, and some of you on Indian Trace, you get that, you understand it. It's good natural light right now. So let me talk to you about a couple of these pieces in terms of their stories. I don't even know where to start. It's easy for me to remember, but I just don't know which one because they're all really great. There's a piece from Notchville. And it is, I wish I could hold them all up and take time with the lighting, but they're all as red and tangerine as my skin. It's so red that I'm not getting the contrast when they're in my hand. This was a great piece. And the interesting thing I remember about it at Notchville too is that it was an iceberg. It was just sticking up on the off season. Just like that, and you never know what you're gonna be rewarded with, so I wanted to go ahead and check it. And it just turned out to be a great base. Overall, great workmanship, very strong. They even relieved a bit off of the base. You can see how it's dimpled. If I get the right light, hit this. They do really great work. They did really great work at Notchville. Plenty of points from there. I wouldn't be surprised there's not another 2 or 3 of them in here from Notchville. But look at this point. From when I first started going out to Deer Passage in Site 7. I've never found any points that are similar to this in quartz. Very unique. Site 7 point. Deer Passage to be exact, because the Site 7 is now broken into about 8 little compartments. One is named Deer Passage, and you've heard the name before. Just a great piece of quartz. And this piece has grown on me. It's so much better than when I found it. I didn't know anything 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You know how it is when we look back and say, man, I was collecting 15 years ago, but I didn't know anything. Now, if I found a piece like this, I'd be like, I know how valuable it is because I have the experience of the years that I've found stuff to go on. For example, this, 5 years ago, at Quiet Sands. I remember it was blazing hot. Must have been, one of those 98 to 105 degree days. Heat index was over 100. Humidity, 80, 85. Interesting thing about this point is I'm pretty sure and checked it. It's ground to produce the bevel on the base. If I can get the right light. can see it. That's ground right off the side, and it would have been easy to do that. But they wanted a bevel there. It's great workmanship. Solid point, solid lattice point. Moving forward, here's a point. Whispers a yellowish tint in the quartz from the cove, which is site 2. And of course, this is another, when the cove has artifacts to share, usually you find quite a few. It's one of the sites that I have that are way over 500 artifacts that I pulled from that spot. So I know for those 500, there's 10 times more there. Sure as you live. So when it's ready, I'll go back and I'll find some more. But this was a unique piece. Top shelf. Most of my top shelf stuff, it doesn't go anywhere. I'll keep it. I have no interest, never had any real interest in selling artifacts. What I mean by real is that if somebody really wants some and is looking to get some, you guys know, and with my other box, I always have extra. Whether it's a giveaway or somebody wants to make an investment and buy some, I'll have some. But these, in my top shelf, I've never considered. I don't need to consider. And some of you understand how that is, but at the same time, I will not consider a garage full of dusty boxes where I don't know what's inside them. I just can't handle that. So I sort of keep it in a minimalistic fashion, but quality and being able to share the sheer abundance of what's out there, as many people have done. I've seen some great videos about it. Here's a great piece from the Archaic. About 3.5, 4 years ago, before, right next door to the Archaic is the clay pot, before I even knew it existed, before the clay pot was even cut down. Because the clay pot is a woodland that's been cleared, de-stumped, burned out. I remember my curiosities about the clay pot, but it's always been right next door to the Archaic, which pretty much from the beginning of collecting, where I found a rhyolite Rowan, which just stunned me, has continued to produce the Archaic. That's where that came from. But Outer Edge shared this with me. Outer Edge is in Site 6. And I've been able to get through there this season and found a few really great pieces. But when you find pieces like this, it opens your mind, and then next time you go back, you're like, I'm going to keep my eye open for this color or that, and you try not to expect anything. But the Outer Edge produced this, and this is really interesting. It may be clunky to some, but you can take a look at it. It's been worked on every possible perspective. It's a great piece. Now, here's a stunner, one of my favorites, from the Hawk, Site 5E. That was another early point from the tobacco. I remember the day in the tobacco it was tobacco that was about ready to be harvested. It probably already had about 2 rows from the bottom pulled off from the machines. Plenty of weather, plenty of water, but this had weathered out right on the row. And I was just getting blessed because I was finding them on the rows, and before I even knew that that was a viable way to find artifacts. I mean, I was just doing experimentation 4 years ago and how to locate and how to find. And this one popped up, and it's just, to me, just one of my winning points. Maybe it's the shape. You know, it's a little thicker, but I mean, this thing is devastatingly perfect. I mean, it wouldn't stop. Flesh wouldn't stop it. Going at velocity, it would crush bone and stick in, which is what you wanted. Gotta have your food. This is just the circle of life. Here's a much more recent point from 2018 from the Jump Off. Now, the Jump Off is a great place. It is with accents of red in there. And again, chunky, but worked through every facet. I guarantee these did the job for them because I find them quite often, and to me they are some of the highest prize quartz. It was raining this day at the jump off. I also found a white quartz Guilford. It's not coming in focused. That's a great point from there. Unbelievable craftsmanship. And about two more. Look at these two. One from Whitestone and one from Stone Mountain. Look at this piece from Stone Mountain. It's as beautiful as it looks. Quartz work. They're all translucent, so I don't even need to hold them up. The story of this was, it was in a clod root ball from the tobacco that's been plowed under and cut off. So they do one plowing and cutting of the tobacco stalks to flip the root balls over and to get the dirt going so that it can sit a couple weeks and biodegrade. It's a good time to get in when things are ripped apart, but this was just stuck up there in the root ball. Many of these were captured on film. But as everybody moves forward and there's too much going on, too much to pay attention to, nobody really goes back in time and checks all the different videos from people in the past, even though there's great finds. I urge you to do that. I do that. I'm almost obsessive about doing that for people. And if they have a lot of videos, whether it's Jonesy or Richard's Rock House, or, I mean, there's so many. The Ditch Walk, I've seen pretty much every one of the videos because I've simply given up on TV. Such a waste of time. Unfortunate leftist propaganda from Hollywood. I'm going to leave it at that. Could offend somebody, but it's the absolute truth. It's unfortunate. Look at this. Whitestone. Whitestone doesn't come open that often, but it's got a lot of potential there. I found a lot of great pieces that are unique, like this one. And some exquisite material, not just this quartz, but some other flints. So, sure as you live, when the time's right and the day's right, I'll be able to get back out to Whitestone. And the day I found this, I didn't find much else. Just this. But it makes it worth the trip, doesn't it? So those are little bits of the stories behind these points. Behind this quartz. Top shelf stuff. And when I say top shelf on Indian Trace, it'll give you a perspective of what I consider things that highly admirable. Because we're talking about the contrast of thousands and thousands of utilitarian pieces and artifacts. Some do capture the imagination, though. Hope everybody finds out there.